The scent of roasted duck and caramelized sweet potatoes drifted through the lakefront home in Traverse City, Michigan. But all I could detect was the undertone of condescension. Another Mitchell family Thanksgiving. Another round of smiles stretched tight and comments sharper than the carving knife on the dining table. Oh well, my brother Dylan announced as I stepped through the doorway, brushing snow from my coat. Look who finally made it. Must be hard sneaking away from your little, what do you call it again? Workshop, he added, sipping a beer without looking up. It's called Harbor and Hearth, I said evenly, handing my coat to the nearest hanger. The name had been chosen with care, humble, quiet, a perfect shield for what I had really built. Inside, the living room served as a shrine to the Mitchell version of success, my mother's framed leadership awards from Northridge Holdings, Dad's weathered sailing plaques, Dylan's Wharton diploma and finance firm accolades lining the built-ins. And then there was me, Avery Mitchell, owner of what they still believed was just a cozy artisan store near downtown Pasky. Avery's here, Mom called from the kitchen, barely glancing up from her precisely plated hors d'oeuvres. I assumed you'd be buried prepping for your Cyber Monday rush. Isn't that kind of your Super Bowl? She added, her tone just soft enough to sound polite, but pointed enough to cut. I've got a solid team in place, I said, stepping into the warmth of the kitchen. They've got it covered, Mom turned, flawless in heels and a cashmere apron, her executive energy barely dimmed by the holiday. Team? You mean that barista you brought to last year's Christmas brunch? If only she knew that a team meant a national operations division, 6 regional directors, and a logistics fleet moving product for 72 Harbor and Hearth retail locations nationwide. But that had always been the plan, keep it quiet, keep it mine, something like that, I said lightly, pouring myself a glass of Riesling. She offered a half smile. Well, at least you're doing something useful with that Northwestern MBA. Even if it wasn't quite the path we imagined, yes, that MBA, the one they thought I'd wasted. While Dylan climbed corporate ladders, I built my own. Speaking of legacy, Dylan said, reclining on the couch. Did you hear about Mom's announcement? Big things coming for Northridge, they're scooping up smaller retail brands left and right. He grinned. They were about to get quite a surprise, because tomorrow, when she opened her executive transfer documents, she'd see my name, Avery Mitchell, incoming CEO, owner of Harbor and Hearth, the brand Northridge thought it had quietly acquired. But I'd made sure the final papers would reveal the truth. They hadn't bought me. I bought them, the company that was about to get the shock of its corporate life. That's wonderful, Mom, I said, swirling the wine in my glass. Any specific acquisitions on the table? Oh, nothing you'd recognize, dear, she replied with a casual flick of her hand. Major retail players, not small artisan shops, though I suppose those are more your style these days. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, followed by the sound of boot heels on the hardwood and laughter bouncing through the entryway. In no time, the Mitchell house was brimming with family allies, cousins in bespoke suits, aunts with real estate empires, uncles who retired early but still managed to flaunt their financial portfolios like trophies. So, Uncle Barry asked. Over deviled eggs, still tinkering around in that little storefront of yours? I've got some connections if you're ever ready for a real opportunity, something solid. Appreciate it, I said coolly. But I'm doing just fine, Aunt Linda chimed in next, draped in pearls and judgment. Avery, with your credentials, you could be anywhere. Your mother's running Northridge Holdings for heaven's sake. And here you are, playing shop. If only they knew. While they snickered behind wine glasses, Harbor and Hearth quietly became the face of Cornerstone Retail Group, an umbrella brand I built over 6 years, one acquisition at a time, 72 stores, 10 product lines, private label logistics. And as of this week, the final controlling interest in Northridge Holdings. Leave her alone, Mom said, not even looking up from her stuffed mushrooms. Her tone tried to be diplomatic, but the edge was clear. Not everyone was meant for corporate success, her voice implied. I glanced at my watch, 5:03 p.m. By now, the folders would have been couriered to every Northridge board member. Digital copies sent to their secured inboxes, and the controlling ownership shift executed, right on cue. Mom's phone buzzed on the granite kitchen island. She glanced at the screen, frowning, and stepped away without a word. Her heels clicked down the hall toward her study. They're probably another acquisition, Dylan said proudly, puffing out his chest. She's been expanding like crazy, cornering every mid-market retail brand she can. I sipped my wine, slow and measured. Actually, I think this call might be a little different. The words had barely left my mouth when Mom's voice rang through the walls. What do you mean, hostile takeover? The room froze. Even the football game on the TV seemed to mute itself in response. Should someone check on her? Aunt Linda asked, her tone suddenly less smug. Give her a moment, I said calmly. I imagine she'll want to share the news herself. Mom burst back into the room, color drained from her face, phone still pressed tightly to her ear. This has to be a mistake, she stammered. Cornerstone Retail Group? Who are they? I've never even heard of them. Now it was my turn to smile. Oh, but you have, I said. You just knew them by a different name. I reached into my leather tote and pulled out an identical folder to the one Northridge's board had just received. I placed it gently on the dining table, the Cornerstone logo gleaming under the chandelier. You see, I began, as every eye in the room locked onto me. I didn't just build a business. I bought the one you all worship. If you're as stunned as they were, hit subscribe, because what happens next at the board meeting will leave the entire Mitchell family speechless. I laid the documents on the dining room table with deliberate calm. Cornerstone Retail Group started with a single vintage clothing shop, I continued, meeting their stunned eyes. A tiny boutique everyone here dismissed as a cute distraction. Mom's face turned from flushed to ghostly pale as she slowly approached the table, staring down at the official seals and signatures as if they might vanish on closer inspection. No, she whispered. This is impossible. The IT was never just about that storefront, I continued, my voice clear in the stunned silence. While everyone here rolled their eyes at my little shop, I was building something far bigger, something that now holds controlling interest in Northridge Holdings. The roast duck sat untouched on the table. Steam curled upward in vain as my family stared like the food had grown teeth. Mom sank into her chair, phone still in hand like a lifeline. Across the table, Dylan scrambled for his phone while Rebecca tapped furiously on her tablet. Oh my God, she whispered. Her face was drained of color. They're huge. Cornerstone's market cap is $28 billion as of last quarter, and with the Northridge acquisition, will likely cross $30 by year's end. But you run a vintage shop, Uncle Barry stammered. No, I said evenly. I own a vintage shop. I run one of the largest privately held retail conglomerates in North America. There's a difference. Mom finally looked up, voice cracking. This has to be a joke. You can't possibly. I reached into my tote and slid my corporate badge across the table. On it, Avery Mitchell, CEO and majority shareholder, Cornerstone Retail Group. The little shop you've all mocked for years, I said. That's just where I go when I want to remember where it all began. Aunt Linda's voice was a whisper. All this time. All those Thanksgiving dinners. We had no idea. No, I replied, keeping my tone professional. You didn't, because while you were ridiculing my so-called wasted potential, I was finalizing acquisitions, building a retail empire larger than Northridge ever dreamed of being. Rebecca kept scrolling. The Riverside Mall acquisition. The Turner department stores. The Atlantic Coast chain, that was all you, she asked me. I confirmed. Well, me and the executive team I handpicked based on skill, not golf club memberships. That hit its mark. Everyone at the table knew how Rebecca's law partnership came courtesy of Dad's networking on the back nine. Mom looked at me, eyes wide and searching. Why didn't you ever tell us? I met her gaze. Would you have believed me if I had? The room fell silent again. I stood slowly, picking up the now empty wine glass in front of me. You didn't need to believe in me. You just needed to stay out of my way. And then, with the timing of a well-rehearsed presentation, I turned to the rest of the room. Besides, I said, collecting the last folder and slipping it into my leather tote, watching you all underestimate me while I built something extraordinary. That was the most enlightening part of all. It showed me exactly who you really are. The doorbell rang, and the entire room jumped. Through the living room window, we watched as 2 news vans pulled up beside the Mitchell family mailbox. This would be the press, I said casually, checking my watch. The acquisition goes public in about 5 minutes. Mom blinked at me, stunned. The press? She whispered. What do I even say? Don't worry, I replied, pulling out a crisp printed document. Our PR team prepared a statement for you, something polished about synergies, shared vision, and growth alignment. The usual corporate poetry. Dad, who had been uncharacteristically quiet for the entire spectacle, finally spoke. His voice was even, but I didn't miss the edge. All those times you said you were too busy to come to family birthdays because of inventory issues, board meetings, I corrected gently. Merger negotiations. Expansion strategy for the European launch, though yes, sometimes it really was. Inventory at the shop. I still work the floor now and then. Keeps me grounded. Reminds me where I started. Outside, camera crews were beginning to set up on the front lawn. One reporter was testing her mic, her eyes scanning the house like a hawk. Circling a headline, I have to admit, I said, standing and brushing imaginary lint from my blazer. This wasn't quite how I intended to spend Thanksgiving. I had originally planned to announce the takeover at Christmas. I turned to Mom, who had paled further under her perfect foundation. But when I heard about your latest expansion spree, I added with a shrug. Well, sometimes opportunity knocks early. What happens now? Mom asked quietly. Now, I said, you have 2 options. You can fight the takeover, our legal team is more than prepared. Or. I offered her a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. You can accept a very generous transition package, which includes, of course, a non-voting seat on the cornerstone board. A seat on your board? She echoed almost to herself. You're offering me a seat on your board? We like to keep successful executives close, I said deliberately, echoing the very phrase she'd once used when crushing a smaller competitor. Though of course, you'll be reporting to me now. The irony lingered in the air like perfume, thick, undeniable, unforgettable. Rebecca cleared her throat. And the rest of us? What about you? I said, turning to her. You mocked my business. You minimized my work. But did you try to sabotage me like some others at this table? I let my eyes land deliberately on Mom. Her expression wavered. 3 years ago, she'd used backdoor contacts to block one of my earliest acquisitions, called it amateur hour in an email that had conveniently leaked at AS for your law firm. I continued to Rebecca, you do decent work. We might consider sending some business your way, but no special treatment. She flinched. No more family favors. The first knock came at the door. Reporters? Mom stood, automatically adjusting her blouse and smoothing her blazer, years of corporate conditioning falling into place. Mile, I said gently. This is history, free, Mom said quietly, her voice no longer clipped or commanding, just human. I don't know what to say. It don't say anything, I replied gently. Just read the press release. We'll go over your transition package tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp, in my office. Your office? She repeated faintly. I smiled. Yes. The corner shop has a pretty extensive basement. My corporate headquarters takes up most of the block behind it. You've probably walked past it a dozen times without realizing. The knocking at the front door grew more urgent. Camera flashes danced across the windows. Uncle Barry looked ready to faint. Aunt Linda still hadn't looked up from her phone, probably watching our stock price skyrocket as the news hit. Oh, and one more thing, I added as I headed toward the back door. Mom, you might want to update the family photo wall. Your newest board member should probably be up there. You're leaving? Rebecca asked, blinking. But what about Thanksgiving dinner? I gave her a small, wistful smile. We're having our company-wide Thanksgiving celebration at the corner shop. Everyone's invited, execs, clerks, warehouse crew. No hierarchy, just gratitude. Rebecca looked taken aback. That actually sounds kind of wonderful. The IT is, I said, because unlike this family, my company values people for their work. Not their name. Not their title. Just what they contribute. As I slipped out the back door, Mom's voice floated over the growing hum of reporters. We're thrilled to announce a groundbreaking partnership between Northridge Holdings and Cornerstone Retail Group. My phone buzzed. DFO. Stocks up 12% already. Congrats, boss. I smiled and typed back. Thanks. Save me some turkey. The driveway was calm, unlike the media chaos erupting out front. I slid into my modest hybrid sedan, in sharp contrast to the SUVs my family adored. From the porch, I heard Uncle Barry exclaim, "But it's just a tiny shop." How did she? Oh, indeed. They judged my store by its square footage. Never once asked what I was building behind it. They saw what they wanted: a failed executive, a directionless dreamer, a girl who didn't fit the mold. And in doing so, they missed everything. Another buzz. Text from Mom, "We need to talk." Reply, "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late." I run a tight ship, then I added, "And bring Dad. There are 2 seats open on the board. He once visited the shop without mocking it. That counts for something." I started the car, glanced in the rearview mirror one last time. Beyond the swarm of reporters, I saw them, my family still on the porch, faces stunned, trying to process how the daughter they had dismissed had just become their superior, but I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was thinking about my real family, 300 employees waiting at the corner shop. People who believed in me. Who built something extraordinary without ever asking for my pedigree. Success doesn't always wear a tailored suit or sit in a glass tower. Sometimes it looks like a cozy vintage shop with a $30 billion 0-cent secret, and sometimes, the sweetest victory isn't taking over your mother's company, though that felt amazing. Sometimes it's proving to everyone that while they were busy mocking your little shop, you were building an empire right under their noses. As I drove off, I couldn't help but smile. Next Thanksgiving is going to be legendary.